I wanted to talk just a moment about Dale Seymour. Dale Seymour, as far as I know, I'm not sure whether he came to Gathering for Gardner. He did in the early years, good. He was one of the people, like Martin Gardner, who was terrifically interested in educating young kids in mathematics and getting them interested in mathematics and doing interesting things with mathematics. And he just died this last year after just doing numerous publications. He started Creative Publications. I couldn't find the date he started at. It started, but it was going when I moved to California in 1964. One of the first places I found puzzles and mathematics books was Creative Publications. He was the founder of Creative Publications, and then in 1989, left them and started Dale Seymour's Publications. In both cases, he printed dozens of books for young people of all ages and adults sometimes. A lot of them were specific mathematics areas, but most of them were just problem books and ways to interest kids in mathematics. He was particularly interested in things like tessellations, and just has dozens and dozens of books from both those publications efforts. He also published books for teachers of children. Well, what else do they want? They also, as I say, what I found at first was not the books so much as the puzzles. He sold early editions of several puzzles that were just coming out in those days. He also had several other interests, one of which that was strange was he started finding out the history of poker chips that everybody uses, and he founded the organization that collected poker chips. He made dozens of mathematical models. He had a very large backyard, and he made all sorts of sculptures of mathematics things for that yard and for general interest. He was an early one who had the hyperdodecahedron. He had a giant one in his backyard. He just did everything mathematical, and many other things besides. But I think that's all. I didn't make a biography of him, but if you can find his books today, they're available secondhand all over the place, and they're all very good for young kids and for adults. I've always liked them for myself. I think that's all.
I first met Lambert Bright many years ago at an international puzzle party, and he was a master of entanglement puzzles. He would regularly attend, he would attend the gatherings with his wife Sandy, and he was always very quiet but a brilliant man, and we're sad to lose him. The next person would be Jerry Farrell, who also would be here with his wife, Karen, and Jerry was a very close friend of Tom Rogers and was I don't think he was at the first one, but just about every one. And he loved mathematical magic, and one of his claims to fame was the incredible election day crossword puzzle, which many of you people know, but maybe don't know. During the election between Bob Dole and Bill Clinton, he correctly, in the New York Times, a crossword puzzle appeared which correctly predicted the winner the day before the election. So if you don't know that puzzle, you should look it up on the internet. And Jerry would always have some new card trick or mathematical trick, and he was a puzzler also. He would go to the IPPs and the puzzle conventions, and he is greatly missed. The next person is Ken Dalton, and Ken worked at Bell Labs in the 1960s and truly was one of the great pioneers of computer art. Did the domino portrait of Martin Gardner, among many other things, and pixels was his thing. He was probably the first person to put a pixel on a movie screen with his program that he created at Bell Labs in the 60s, and I had the honor of working with him on a jigsaw puzzle called Jigazo Puzzle, and Robert Bosch and I did a talk, a Zoom talk, about 2 years ago, interview with Ken Knowlton, so anybody could look in the series, the Gathering for Gardner series on talks, so you might want to look that up. And he made all these different mosaic pictures that we see today of people making pictures with jelly beans and coffee cups and burnt toast pieces. They really go back, Ken is the father of all of that. And that image, that's him with Leon Harmon. And Leon Harmon was a psychologist that he worked with at Bell Labs. And Leon did that famous picture of the Abraham Lincoln thing. So they worked together. Ken was the artist and the computer programmer in those days. And he passed away this past June at age 91. And we're sorry to miss, we'll really miss Ken. The next person would be Ivan Moscovich, who was somebody that I've known for many, many years through the toy business. And Ivan created many games and puzzles and toys, and really way ahead of his time before anybody was talking about STEM or STEAM or anything like that. Early from the 1960s, Ivan was always making the connection between art, mathematics, science, and engineering, and all these different disciplines. He made these beautiful spirographic drawings, which he built this harmonograph machine. You'll see he exhibited them there. That's him with his wife, Anita. And he was the first person to do an interactive science museum. It was in Tel Aviv in the 1960s, early 1960s. And the brother of Oppenheimer, who the famous movie is about, who started the Exploratorium in San Francisco, visited Ivan's museum in Tel Aviv in the 60s and got the idea for the Exploratorium from Ivan's museum. So Ivan really was the father of all these it was all about interactivity with Ivan. And the Exploratorium in San Francisco was based on Ivan's idea. And the first few exhibits that were at the early Exploratorium were from Ivan Moscovich. That's him with Mel Stover, who was also a very good friend of Martin Gardner's. And Ivan also was in close contact and had much correspondence with Martin. The next person. That's it. And I think Mark. We're up to Mark now. Go ahead.
So many of you were able to see Max Maven work here at very two recent G4Gs, and we're so grateful for that possibility now. And Max was just an incredibly prolific man. And actually, I was just looking at our memorial page, which I would suggest that you look at the G4G website, because you'll see many great stories. So Colm tells the story of his mother stopping the car and seeing this old man. But you see, Max was actually Phil Goldstein. He was from a very academic family. And the story that Colm tells on the website is one that Max loved to tell about this old man that had stopped the car, and his mother was Einstein. And so he was, magicians didn't always realize what a true academic family he came from. And actually, the first person on this stage who met Max Maven was actually the woman over there, Susanna, because she was studying Japanese in Japan. And at one point, she was asked to help with this magic convention, and so she met Max very early on. Norman Gilbreth tells that story of the Gilbreth principle on the website, and that's actually quite amazing, because Norman was completely blown away that the first time he went to Japan, nobody could understand him, and he realized there was such a big barrier that is what inspired him to learn Japanese, an incredible effort. And then he actually returned to do so many shows in Japan that he won the Tenkai Prize, which is their highest prize for a Japanese magician. And his influence is really incredible. Also, his bluntness. Like, so for instance, we have a older friend in New York, Regina Reynolds, and he would always call her Dragon Lady because she's from Boston originally, and she has quite a bite. And but because of that, they united, and he always lovingly called her Dragon Lady, and Regina always called him Max. So he's just a fun, wonderful man, and who's missed. He helped so many people in magic, and he worked both within magic, doing magic conventions and writing magic books, but also outside of magic, working in show business, doing all kinds of events, creating all kinds of incredible inventions, a lot with interactive magic, and was very close to Martin. So, and also incredible work. Anyway, it's so prolific. I know, I keep talking, but we'll miss him very much. And also, I've been asked to speak about Dan Garrett, and this is really hard because, at the last one he performed in the stage show. Actually, he was all hesitant. He said, oh no, because of COVID, I haven't performed in a long time. And I said, well, much better for us than doing a corporate. You want to? And he goes, well, you got a point there. So he showed up, but then that that was a chance to explain to everybody about his relationship with the Gathering for Gardner. Like often, Tom Rogers would ask him to put people up. So I should say the main memorial at this meeting will be done tomorrow night by Joe Turner in the Atlanta Cadabra show, and Carol will be here tomorrow night. So we're very, very excited about that, and he'll be missed very much. So thank you very much.
So, sorry, I didn't expect that. David Singmaster. I don't remember meeting David, but I remember him at a meeting when he went up to somebody. Some of you will know David basically via Rubik's Cube, obviously. And he went up to somebody at a math meeting who was wearing a T-shirt with a picture of the small robot companion to C-3PO, some of you will know. But instead of being the small dustbin-type robot, it was actually a Rubik Cube. And underneath it said R2-D2. And David went up to him and said, that's a great T-shirt. And the lad said, oh, yeah, I'm so pleased somebody noticed. Because, actually, it's not just the name of the robot, it's actually a notation for the cube. And they chatted for a while, and it only slowly dawned on this lad who he was talking to. David was amazingly kind, absolutely amazingly kind. The time I really fell in with him was when he was at G4G8, I think it was, may have been 10, where he had the ring on a chain trick. Now, some of you will have seen me doing that. I met it through him, where it was new to him, as it was to most of us, and he was desperately practicing it and showing it to people. He sometimes even got it right. And it was fabulous. And he ended up inviting me to his house. It was a joy to go to his house. But if you went, you had to tell him you could only be there for a half an hour and budget 3.5, right? Because there was always one more thing. Always one more thing. And he would show you a mechanical puzzle, watch you struggle, and then he would struggle with his tongue poking out this side, tongue poking out the other side, as he would fail to remember how to do it. But his joy was always evident. But it wasn't the only thing. Believe it or not, while working as a photographer for an underwater archaeological expedition, he accidentally discovered the oldest known warship wreck in existence off the coast of Sicily. He has a still open conjecture about how often numbers appear in Pascal's triangle. Any number appears only finitely many times, but he conjectured that there was a maximum number that any number could appear. And so far, 3003 appears 8 times. That's the maximum anybody has ever found. It's an open conjecture if you're interested. His knowledge of puzzles was just encyclopedic. I mean, he was amazing. And often he was, if you gave a puzzle in something like this or Maths Jam Gathering, often he would answer just like that. Sometimes because he knew it, and it seemed like he knew everything, but sometimes because he was so sharp that he could actually come up with the answer on the spot. Avid collector, of course. He has a huge collection of Rubik's Cubes and twisty puzzles because people would send them to him, but also many, many, many other things. He also chased down the 3 hairs motif and ended up, as he went down the Silk Road to chase the history of this, he ended up being quoted in a book about the Silk Road and the motif. It's just unbelievable. He was just full of surprises like that. And, sorry again. As Rob Easterway said, he will be greatly missed by everyone who knew him, and his spirit will live on whenever somebody casually picks up a Rubik's Cube, smiles, and starts twisting. Certainly I'll miss him. Thank you.